victims. Like she has like a clawed-foot tub, and she fills it with blood. She lies around it and wallows. It's creepy. And Zero encounters this person. Do you guys want to hear this?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear a little bit. Okay, here we go. So this is when Zero, he's a vampire hunter, as you guys know. He is infiltrating her mansion to ostensibly to slay her, but we'll see how that goes. The entire mansion was filled with the sweet scent of roses, but there was another smell, even stronger than the roses, that hung thickly in the air. The basement, huh? Zero tightened his grip on the guard's throat enough to ensure he was unconscious, then turned to brace hands on the railing to leap nimbly over it in one swift movement. He landed lightly at the bottom of the stairs and found himself facing a door. Opening it, he was immediately assailed by an overpowering stench. Raising his sleeve to his nose, he scrunched up his face in disgust. There was no longer the fragrant scent of red roses in full bloom. It was the smell of something much redder and lusher with life.
What in the world is this?
We get Zero voice here, guys. Despite all he'd seen and experienced as a vampire hunter, even Zero was momentarily dumbfounded by the strangeness of the scene before him. There upon the floor of the wide room lay at least a dozen, no, perhaps several dozens, of youths and young men, and from every wrist oozed pools of blood. At the very center of the landscape of living corpses, a gossamer curtain sectioned off a small area. Zero could sense the presence of a vampire within it. Stepping carefully around the bodies, Zero approached the gauzy curtain, translucent like a dragonfly wing, and tore it open. Oh, that is her. Do you want to be Xian? Go, we're going to make you act on the spot. No? She's a voluptuous older woman. She's the text, dear me. She's a sexy woman, just remember
Be
that.
voluptuous.
I'm not really a sexy woman, but
You can do it.
dear me.
Woo! Shy, she says. In a tub filled with red water, Xian looked up from the feast she had been in the midst of consuming. Whether she had been aware of the intruder or not, she showed not the slightest sign of perturbance at his sudden appearance.
That isn't bathwater.
Zero realized.
It's blood.
It was a frightful sight. The woman had drained the blood of all these men to bathe in. Xian was like a rose that had bloomed from drinking human blood. In a surprisingly sweet voice, she said,
What an adorable boy we have here. Did you come here to offer your blood to me too?
Her eyes never leaving Zero's, Xian reached for the young man kneeling beside her and lowered her lips to his throat, baring her fangs. Apparently dazed by her beauty, the man heedlessly offered himself to her. Zero leveled his gun at her. Xian gave him an empty smile from her glistening crimson lips.
Was that me or you? Okay. A real vampire hunter came all the way just to kill me? I must be getting pretty famous.
Release that man right now.
The latest victim, wrapped in Xian's arms, had lost vast quantities of blood like the others scattered about the room. Zero could detect the faint breath of life still in him, though. He needed medical help immediately.
How unfortunate,
Said Xian.
I can't say I enjoy being ordered around.
Release him.
Zero repeated. When he moved to tighten his fingers around the trigger, Xian relented with a huff and a slight shrug of her shoulders.
And here I was enjoying a special feast tonight. Oh well, off you go.
But Xian-sama, the man protested weakly. Despite what she had been doing to him, he continued to gaze at her with adoration as he obeyed.
Now, little vampire hunter, why don't you turn around and give me a moment?
Why should I?
Fearing that she would attempt to flee, Zero remained facing her.
Well, if you want to see my naked body so much, I suppose I don't mind.
Xian said, lifting herself gracefully from the bathtub. Her snowy white body, dripping with blood, stood completely bare and exposed before him. Sorry, this is kind of a PG-13. sorry, parents. Though Zero kept the arm, pointing his gun steady and perfectly aligned with its mark. He averted his eyes slightly.
You're more of a gentleman than I expected. What an adorable boy you are.
Laughing huskily. Nice. Xian rinsed herself clean with cold water.
You can look now, my innocent little dear,
She said. Zero raised his eyes back to her and found her clad in a bathrobe. She let down her long hair. When she moved to push back a few stray locks from around her shoulders, the top of her robe shifted to show him a flash of ample breasts. Told you this is a steamy scene.
invading my lovely bath time. You certainly are an impatient boy.
Enough with the innuendo.
Zero snapped. Xian sighed.
Fine. What now? What crimes are you charging me with?
Zero pulled a small bottle from his pocket that was sealed with a crest of stylized rose petals. Inside the bottle was a dark red liquid that could have been taken for wine.
Look familiar. It's produced by your organization.
I know it is. So what?
Even faced with proof of her crimes, Xian continued smiling languidly.
She's got guts.
Zero thought. Or perhaps what lay in the depths of her was not so much guts as a bottomless abyss.
She's dangerous.
He thought. Xian was still eyeing the bottle in his hand.
Is that me? Okay. I can't quite compare to the water of life that's so popular among the aristocrats,
She said.
but I'm told it's quite tasty in its own right.
You acknowledge that you are the head of this organization, correct?
Let me tell you this. I did not take any... I did not take any of these men's blood by force. They offered it to me of their own free will. I took it as I might take money offered to me.
Xian continued with perfect composure.
There are all perfectly legal activities. We've done nothing that merits my destruction of the hands of the Hunter Society.
Do you really think excuses like that will make any difference in the face of all this?
Zero gestured around him at the room littered with men nearing death.
I already explained to you, didn't I? These boys came to me. They wanted to be bitten by me. They said they would do absolutely anything to fill my bite. How could I ignore their poor little pleas? If you desire my bite...
Don't be ridiculous.
Reaching the end of his patience, Zero leveled Bloody Rose at her again. Though she must have known that a vampire hunter's weapon could kill her, Xian's composure remained unshaken.
I can tell you're dying of thirst, dear boy, with all this blood in the air. I wonder how long you'll be able to endure it. I don't know what circumstances led you to becoming one of our kind, but I do empathize with what you're going through.
Meaning what?
We vampires can sate our eternal thirst only by drinking the blood of the ones we love,
She said.
It was the same for me as well. Since he fell into eternal slumber, neither my heart nor body has ever felt sated.
For a brief moment, Xian's eyes reflected real loneliness. Zero wondered if that man was the pure-blood lover she once had.
Pure blood.
The moment he registered the word, the image of a certain girl's face flashed through his mind. She'd been beside him for so long, but there had been no choice but for him to leave her behind. Just thinking of Yuki made the conflicted emotions he had smothered away in his heart threaten to explode.
I've had enough of your rubbish.
Zero said, his voice low. As he moved to pull the trigger, the thick scent of blood in the air finally overwhelmed him. His brain went numb for a split second, causing him to lose his footing. Xian didn't waste her chance. Fast as lightning, her foot connected with the hand holding Bloody Rose. Nice. Caught off guard by the sudden attack, Zero lost his grip on the gun. Bloody Rose crashed to the floor with a loud clang. Zero realized he had lost his weapon when the thirst for blood overcame him. Xian, who had taken perfect advantage of this moment of weakness, now stood with one of her sharp blood-red nails poised just above his jugular.
I may not be armed, but I can still match you in a fight, boy. Don't underestimate me just because I'm a level C vampire.
Xian pressed her nail lightly into Zero's throat, breaking the skin. Zero could feel blood begin to seep from the wound.
What an interesting fragrance. It seems your blood is far from pure.
Breathing in the scent of his blood deeply, Xian gave him a faint smirk.
Shut up!
Zero growled.
Perhaps. I'll make it so I'll never have to listen to your insolence ever again. Starting now.
Xian dug her nail into his skin and brought her lips toward his throat. Refusing to retreat, Zero glared fiercely at her. Xian paused a bare breath away from him and peered into his eyes.
Those eyes of yours, colored with such despair. They're lovely. Just looking at them sends shivers down my spine. What do you say? Want to join me?
What are you talking about?
Zero asked after a pause. Xian grinned, amused by his wariness.
I mean,
She explained.
even though sales of my blood are expanding and spreading throughout the underworld, in the end, a vampire is a vampire. There are some who will never be fully comfortable doing business with me.
So what?
I want a contract in the Hunter Society.
You mean me?
Yes, I'd be able to spare your life, and it would make me happy to count you as an ally.
Zero paused to consider the idea. His old self would have probably turned the offer down point blank. There was no way he would ever have agreed to partner up with a vampire he had just met. However,
She's apparently got a sizable information network, plus personal connections throughout the vampire realm. She's far more embedded than any non-vampire could ever hope to be. Maybe I can make use of her.
he thought. As a pureblood's lover for many years, Xian's information network would be vast indeed, and her web of informants everywhere.
That's not a terrible proposition.
Zero said at length. At his assent, Xian withdrew her hand and licked the smeared blood off her extended fingertips. She wore a satisfied smile on her lips.
Just as I thought. You have quite an interesting flavor. Now shall we begin the ritual to seal our oath?
Ritual?
Zero shrank back slightly, making the sort of face a little boy might at having to dress up at a formal event of some kind. Xian huffed softly and smiled at him as if he were a sulking younger brother.
Don't tell me you expect me to trust you word alone, dear boy. It does no good. It does no good to either party if the sorts of things aren't formalized properly.
So what do you want? My signature on a contract? Because that's not happening.
No, I wouldn't do something so ludicrous as leave an inconvenient paper trail,
She said. Her mirthful expression changed to one of invitation, and she wrapped her arms around Zero's neck.
You're thirsty, aren't you?
She murmured. Her beauty was suddenly overwhelming. An overpowering scent of roses filled the air around them, making Zero's head reel. It was nearly nauseating. With her arms still wrapped around him, Xian raised one hand and began running it softly through his hair.
Drink my blood, dear boy.
Entranced, Zero was on the verge of doing just that when he managed to pull himself back. His voice dropped as he muttered sullenly.
Don't call me boy.
As soon as he had finished speaking, Xian grasped his hair and pulled his head down to her neck. And from that time on, Zero and Xian were linked.
Wow!